Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Ryan from Seaway Sports Lounge, and welcome back to another edition of Leafs Timeout. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Game 4 of the regular season between the Coyotes and the Leafs. They're playing at home tonight. I'm going to go over some Leaf news that just broke about yesterday, and then after that, we're going to go over the game or play by play of each period, as I always do. I'm also going to give some takeaways, general thoughts, of course, of what happened. Let's just get right into it. So, yesterday, some news broke with the Matt Murray injury. There was some cap relief that was able to be used. Toronto was able to recall three of their players that have been waiting to come back up. Wayne Simmons, Victor Mete, and Nick Robertson were all recalled. There was hope that these guys would, one of them or a few of them would get into this game, but it didn't happen. That's good news for Toronto. They could use the cap relief as in players because they're going on a road trip soon. In case there's other injuries or if they want to make line changes, they'll have the personnel to do it. So this game, the Coyotes game, I have to say, this was one of the weirdest, different games I've watched in a very long time. It was almost like watching two different hockey games in the same frame. It was just bizarre. Fortunately, to that point, the Maple Leafs lost the game 4-2. They basically had two different ways about it, and I don't know why they did it that way, but that's how they did it. They outshot them 28-19. Now, the 28-19 was a little deceiving because a lot of the shots were later in the third period, but I'll go into that after. That's what happened. They ended up losing 4-2. So, safe to say the fan base was not happy after this game was done, but that's where we're at. Now, Eric Shelgren, he ended up starting his first game of the season. They decided to go with him. They gave Samsonov the night off. Samsonov started two in a row. One was unexpected, of course, because of the injury to Matt Murray. Carl Bamelka from the Coyotes, he started. Now, he's had good success against the Maple Leafs, especially last year. If I'm not mistaken, he had a really good game against Toronto where he had over 40 plus shots again in a victory. So those were the goaltenders for the game. Now, first period, there was a series of penalties that happened. I mean, both teams had 3-on-3, like as in three penalties each. The game overall, there was a period of time where Toronto, when they had their power plays, were very dominant early. They were controlling the puck in the Coyotes' end. They tried to get some shots. A lot of shots missed the net, of course, but they did have sustained pressure time. It looked really good. A different change from what we've seen over the last few games. And as the period wore on, it started to change back into the more shots were missing. They were being blocked all the time. A very defensive style game, especially from the Coyotes' perspective. And after that, they got their power plays, and Nick Ritchie, right at the end of the period, he ended up connecting on his shot, and he scored with Shane Gostisbehere and Moser assisting. So that put them up 1-0 right at the end of the period. Capped a kind of an odd period, but a very similar period what we've been seeing. We've been seeing a lot of slow starts and missed opportunities and that with Toronto. Happened after into second period. It was very much a very weird, odd. They couldn't get going. Their setup wasn't working. They couldn't sustain any kind of pressure on the goaltender. Shots were not getting through. It was just frustrating. If anything, this was a probably the most frustrating period out of all the ones we've seen so far. Montreal was another one, but this one in particular because they just couldn't get it right. They were out of sync the whole time. Again, very defensive, but Toronto just could not get the job done. Anyway, at 8:30, Christian Fischer, he ended up scoring Nick Bustad and then ended up going down 2-0. It didn't honestly, the period did not look good. The whole game to this point, minus that little push they had in the first period, it didn't look very good. Toronto was not playing. Third period was again, just like we've seen before in the last few games, it was like a split period. It was like first half, same, second half, completely different game. Unbelievable. Like, talk about a roller coaster for the fan base. At the beginning, again, hard time. Things weren't rolling for Toronto. They were kind of at a standstill, a lot of frustration. Players were just not feeling it. They weren't having a good time. Anyway, around 12:54 is when everything changed. The whole game completely changed. Toronto woke up. Their offense connected on a power play from William Nylander. Now, for a point to bring up, Toronto had 4 power plays in this game before this goal and had no shots whatsoever. Safe to say the fans were not happy with that. So there was a lot of boos and a lot of unsettled fans. But anyway, Nylander silenced all that, and he ended up just making everybody get off their seat because he got a nice power play goal. He got it from John Tavares and Riley. That kind of set the tone. And all of a sudden, the Maple Leafs started to really pressure the Coyotes, unlike what we saw the rest of the game. A minute later, less than a minute actually, Mitch Marner ended up getting a nice pass right in front of the goal. It was just after the faceoff. He ended up getting a nice pass and he put it, backhands it right past the goalie. Completely didn't expect it. And then, of course, the whole building explodes. Now it's 2-2. Whole different game now. Pretty cool to watch from that standpoint. But mind you, we still keep an eye on what happened all game. And then after this, 2-2 all seemed well. Toronto was in full mode. They were pressing the team this time. And then Yarnrock takes an interference call right in front of the ref. Anyway, deflates kind of the momentum they were gaining. Even when I watched the goal that was scored, I had a feeling that goal was going to go in because it just seemed too perfect. Anyway, it was like a three passes right in front of Shelgren, and Shane Gostisbehere got the goal with a great one timer right by him. Didn't even have a chance, and that put them up 3-2. So now, of course, now we're down again, and this is now right near the end of the game. We're talking less than 5 minutes, maybe or so, maybe about 3 minutes left. Period wore on. 30 seconds left. Morgan Riley gets the puck now. Apparently, he bats it out of the air with his hand. They could just hit his hand. That's what I think I saw. It lands. It hits the other player, Clayton Keller. And he hits it in the foot. And then Matt Riley passes off to one of his teammates and ends up passing it over to Kerfoot. And then what happens? Kerfoot puts the puck in the net. Toronto's now 3-3. Whole building's going crazy. Everyone's happy. And then all of a sudden, they whistle it down and say, we need to review the puck. And sure enough, upstairs, they determined that the puck was, in their opinion, was a hand pass. So the goal was disallowed, which now put Toronto back 3-2. All the fans grumbling about that. They get an empty netter right at the end of the game and took care of the game 4-2. And that was the end of it. That was the game. So takeaways. The takeaways from this game, lots to unpack. Pretty sure there's little bit of troubles heading towards this team. Maple Leafs are not playing that well. I know in past few games I've said there was good puck possession and zone time, which there has been, which has been the most perplexing thing because they've had these, but they just can't get the shots on net. They either get blocked, they get, heavy defense, like I said in the previous video, and tonight was no different. It seemed just pretty much the same over and over again. And I don't know how they're going to break it. Either they can figure out a way to drive to the net like they did last year. That would be the best. Maybe the personnel they have right now is not the right fit. Maybe they need to make tweaks. Maybe that will be an option as well. I have a feeling that's going to be the case in the next game. These poor starts, this stuff needs to stop. They have to figure out a way to stop this because this is not sustainable for 82 games, let alone 10, because the fans are getting restless. You can even see it on the bench. The coaching staff's getting restless as well. They're having a hard time with this. I mean, the defense is showing injuries. I'll go into an injury that happened tonight, but the injuries to the defense with Liljegren out and a few others, you're starting to see that the depth is being tested. The pushback also is not happening, which is something it's showing now where they're getting pushed around and nobody's responding. And I don't know why. I mean, Austin Matthews is a big guy. I mean, in a few games now, he's been basically mauled by a bunch of these players and no one's coming to help him. He's not helping himself either, which I still don't get. I mean, granted, he is paid to score and get lots of points, but at the same time, you want to defend your position better, and I think he can do a better job. That's my opinion. But I just don't find there's a sense of urgency either. I just don't find that has this demeanor where they need to dig in and take the game back. I find they float around a lot. There's a lot of passes that go, or they're errant passes, or they're making plays that just send it, like what happened to Muzzin in Montreal, where he'll just send it up the middle, which is like, you don't do that. And they did it. Morgan Riley's had a tough go over the last few games. He's been burned on a few goals. He's had a bit of an underperforming part of the first part of the year, even though it's only 4. There's a lot of little things that are coming up right now that seem to be alarming to a lot of Leaf fans because obviously we want success. We want people to see the team as a successful team, which I think it still will be, of course. It's very early, let's be honest. And they do have still a very potent offense. I just think they're still stuck in like neutral. They can't get going. And I mean, these teams they've met, they're not the best teams in the world. They should be trouncing these guys, and they're not doing it. They only had the one real good game against the Capitals, in my opinion. Ottawa was better, but the other two, as far as I'm concerned, weren't. But anyway, that's kind of my takeaway from the game. I just felt that the Maple Leafs need help. They need to get better. Now, a couple little points to bring up finish up the video, John Tavares received his 900th point tonight, which is great, of course. Good for him. Also, Jake Muzzin, the injury I was talking about, and Jake Muzzin took a blow to the head earlier in the game. Anyway, he had to leave the game. He thought he could continue and he couldn't. Apparently, it's a neck injury, according to TSN. They're obviously going to evaluate him probably tomorrow, and then we'll see what the status of his injury. Now, as we all know, Jake Muzzin has sustained a number of injuries over the last few years. He's complained about back trouble this year. He's obviously has concussion issues from last year as well. So hopefully this blow to the head isn't too bad. Hopefully it's I mean, it still hurts and still going to be an issue, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But they do have room for players to come up, so that's good news. So with that, I think we'll end the video here. I hope you found value with this video. If you like what we're doing with our channel, please hit like and subscribe. If you want to get more notifications, please hit the notification bell on the right. The Maple Leafs host the Dallas Stars on Thursday, so that's our next game. Here's hoping they have a better outcome. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good night.